Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking down some electric fence. We're going to show you our setup for putting fences up and taking them down. It's late in the fall here, grazing's pretty much done for the year, but we're going to show you how we do stuff and our setup.
First I'm going to show you what we made. We made this reel to roll the wire up on. Now the fields are awfully crooked. There's a lot of ups and downs and corners and stuff in all these little fields that we graze, so this field that we're going to take this fence out of is actually going to go into corn next year. So this is actually fourth crop the cows grazed off, which worked out good because the weather was dry and nice out, so the cows would come out there instead of be hanging out in the barnyard. But so anyway, we got this soft wire, and I think this is 12 gauge, and you can use what they call the high tensile, which is better, harder to work with, a lot heavier, and then when you're moving fences all the time, especially when it's so crooked, it's probably not as nice to work with. So this is a lot lighter, and with dairy cows they're pretty forgiving. They respect it quite well, even though it's not very strong. It just, so I rigged up this thing for the four-wheeler, and this is a couple 20-inch disc blades with a pipe welded through it, and then this here crank, I think that's from a, it's like from a full two-row field cultivator that ended up working out pretty good. I made two of these because we can't get all the wire on just one. And then this here too, that's from a field cultivator, so that gets slipped through there. So I modified this on our four-wheeler basket, and there's supposed to be a key here, but it seems to work without it. I used to have a bolt on there, but that was interfering and undoing itself during roll up or unrolling. So now pretty much do this, and we just use a vice grip, which actually works pretty good. That way we can adjust it so that maybe even adds a little bit of a tension on it so it doesn't unroll too fast or get tangled up. And anyway, you get the picture. And then right here we always wrap it there so we know where our end is, because it's, now this wire that's on here has been unrolled and rolled up maybe 30-40 times over 25 years, so it's probably time for us to get new wire. But anyway, we still got to take the old stuff down and do something with it. So, and then I'm going to show you now, like on our corners, we got these T-posts that I think they came out of a wetland that we bought years ago, and the posts were breaking off. So anyway, I ended up with a whole pile of these shorter posts, these T-posts, which work really good for electric fence. So the key is not to have so much stuff to carry along. And then these insulators, and on these old posts, because they're thicker, they're a little harder to get on and off, so they stay in really good. And we seem to like these. I don't know, you give them 8-10 years and they eventually, the sunlight gets the best of them and they get brittle and crack, but they're reasonably cheap. And then what we did is my father-in-law started this. Now that's just a porcelain insulator, and you can buy those in your farm store, and this is like a 30 or 40 penny spike, whatever fits through that hole. And I welded it on there and then cut off the one end. And then some of them on the end that you buy, this here flange is usually pretty flimsy to step it into hard ground. So I started using a sickle section, which is very stout, so it's very easy to get in. And then for the wire, so then we wrap it around double, no clips required. They're light, and that's the one thing, we don't want a lot of heavy material that drag along. So when we drive along with the four-wheeler, as the wire unrolls, we can go right down the line and put them in, and it's just the opposite, taking it back out. So especially when you're moving it all the time. And on this field, what I did is I gave them about 2 acres every other day until I got to the end of it. And that is fun, watching them cows run into that new little patch of grass. It's just like kids in a candy store. Anyway, it actually works out pretty good. So as long as electricity's on that fencer, and we use solar fencers, and they'll last about 2 to 3 years. It seems like they're They're not as hardy as the ones you plug in, but a lot of our fields are so far from electricity. Okay, so this is a solar fencer, and they're not everything in the world, but for dairy cows, it actually works pretty good. And I don't exactly got an official ground, but what I do is take a grinder and I'll grind away a little bit at a spot on the post and use a clamp to get a good contact there. Just really more simple. And actually, they actually got a place you can put on the T-post several different directions so that you can face the sun. Okay, so like on where we come to an end, now a lot of our fields, maybe there's already permanent fences on one side or two sides of it. So when we come to a place where we just got to stop, I've been using these. And this is just insulators from the old power system that was in a farmyard. I got actually quite a few of them. They don't really use them anymore, but where I would put one wire through and tie it to our permanent fence and then put the other one through, as long as they don't touch. But it's a good insulator for a start and a stop. Some places will just leave it in the fence where we set up the next year again anyway, so this part stays out there a lot of times.
All right, so we're gonna start getting to work, but first my dad's gonna show you a pretty neat trick or tip before you start working and taking your electric fence down.
Okay, so we started doing something here because a lot of times we'll take all the posts out and we get way to the other end, then we'll hook it to our reel and start rolling it up. But then I would question, well, do we have it all? Did it break off someplace? This wire's kind of frail, gets snagged up in the grass. And years ago, when my father-in-law was working for a guy when he was younger, they ended up with a big chunk of wire that got left in a hayfield, and then they next year chopped it with the hay, and then the winter after that they had trouble with the cattle hardware. What I thought to do is just take one of these clips, pretty simple, and shove it through someplace. No matter what you tie to it, tie anything to it, but just something that when you get done rolling it up, if you have the end, you know you have it all, just to prevent problems in the future. It's as simple as that.
All right, we've made it about halfway around the field now and found a splice, and we're gonna reel up the wire. But first, my dad's gonna explain a couple things when it comes to his electric fence post.
Here I want to show what can happen with these. We've been buying these from our farm stores, but the flange is so light. That's why I like to use a sickle section. So the ground was really hard like this fall because it was so dry. So what we use is a cordless drill with a concrete bit, and I can drill most of the way down and then push it in and then help with the rest of the way in with my foot. And now here, it just rained here the last couple days, so look how nice and easy it goes in, but it doesn't always work that way. And so if I want to use like a hammer to tap them in, what happens is it breaks the insulator, so I almost got to hold on to it and tap, otherwise the rattle has a tendency to break it because it's like glass. They're actually quite cheap, but still. See, like here's one where I had to redo it, but anyway, and then you see how the end is so banged up. So again, we'll be looking for more of those old sickle sections. Now, so the nice thing with this reel is we can face it just the direction we want. And as the field turns, we just turn our four-wheeler, and we're able to keep the direction pretty straight to guide it onto the spool. And it's always nice to have an extra person to guide it, then you can really reel it in. It doesn't take very long if everybody knows what to do. And my biggest concern when we're rolling up electric fence is nothing gets left behind that's laying in the field that ends up getting into a tire or like I said earlier, like into our cattle stomachs or something. So and it's always better to have a young person rolling this thing up. And there we have it. And we know we have our end. There we go. Stop right there. And then we tie it here around the crank so we don't lose our end. And now we're going to go and put our yellow clip on the end of the next stretch of wire and go pick up some more posts.
I'm sure all of you have been able to hear the dogs playing in the background, but at least they're happy, I guess. Now I think this is another really good tip, especially for those of you that fence with a large group of people. If you're going to leave a pile of posts on the ground, you know, leave a post up where that pile is so that there's less of a chance of you forgetting about that pile. And then later on, if we come to hay next year and someone forgot that pile, that could be a disaster. So really good tip. Now we're filming this in the first half of November. We got our first snow flurries this morning. And we got some more precipitation on its way in. Nice cold, dreary fall day.
So typically what we do is I got what I call my grazing fields. So in the spring of the year, well, we can even start in the fall of the year. So when we're done grazing, a lot of my fields that are my grass fields, I call it, we manure them. So it's mostly end of October through November, and they're usually pretty steep. So by the time it starts snowing, we kind of don't want to be there anymore. But middle of June to late June, we'll make our first cuttings, and then we'll start putting these electric fences up. Santa Claus is coming. See, now we know we have it all. Back when the kids were very little, they used to help me carry the posts out and stuff, and I had to be very careful that we had them all counted for, that they didn't drop them in the grass. They sure pull out nice. Well, the dog has got something cornered in that little brush pile here. What you got there? Well, it's like a possum. Oh yeah, hibernating in there.
All right, so that is it for the grazing video. We just put away all of our stuff. We got the post out of the trailer. We took the reel off and our bucket of insulators. But anyways, I just wanted to say that I think grazing is a beautiful thing. And it's crazy, as I grew older, I thought that was just the standard, that everybody that farmed or had cattle grazed, but that really isn't the case anymore. But anyways, I wanted to thank you all for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.